It's time once again for another thrilling episode of Markout Radio. For the next hour, sit back, pull the stick out of your ass, and enjoy. Be warned though, smarks and internet knowles will be offended, annoyed, and generally pissed off at what's about to happen to your ear holes. You've been warned. Now, Markout Radio.
That's right. Welcome back. Markout Radio goes Nitro, episode 10, November 6, 1995, Jacksonville Memorial Coliseum in Jacksonville, Florida. Your hosts, as usual, Eric Bischoff, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Steve Mongo McMichael. Only dark match this week. Jim Duggan defeats Big Bubba Rogers. Well, you know what? Bubba Rogers actually did have some championship matches. I was about to say the Battle of the Mid-Carders, but, you know, it is what it is. All right, show starts off with Jesus. Bischoff plugging his red and blue locker room shenanigans where fans call in to book the matches, and it all costs 99 cents a minute. This gimmick wasn't long for the world as it generated a grand total of $23.76 as 24 people called in. In the red locker room, Ric Flair, Ming, DDP, the Blue Bloods, Regal and Eaton, Big Bubba Rogers, Shark, and Scott Norton. In the blue locker room, I mean, I guess you could have called that the heel locker room. In the blue locker room, Sting, Johnny B. Bad, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Dave Sullivan, Evad, Alex Wright, the Twink, Nasty Boys, and Jerry Lynn, who was just put down as JL. Not Mr. JL, just JL. How dare you put Mr. in front of his name? All right, Savage isn't in the locker rooms, but Bischoff teases Luger-Savage feud. At the time, Luger was actually dating Miss Elizabeth, and this was one of those situations where Eric was convinced that a real-world beef made for better angles. Of course, it doesn't. It rarely does, but Eric Bischoff, to this day, is convinced that if you put real-life people that real-life don't like each other in a match together, it will have some realism to it. Don't hate on him too much, and here's why. Because Vince hired Brock Lesnar for the exact same fucking reason, and he continues to keep him employed. Brain, ultimately, though, really wants to see Shivani versus Okerlund. I think that his seizure from last week is still affecting his poor brain. All right, your starting match is The Giant with Jimmy Hart defeating Cobra in 16 seconds.
0.
Yeah, that was... I would like to understand why this match happened. I mean, we didn't get an explanation in the pre-show that, you know, there was no one was really participating in their stupid pay-to-vote nonsense. So there was really confusing because you were supposed to spend the whole night seeing matches that the fans had put together, like Taboo Tuesday for the WWF. Unfortunately, what didn't happen was we got no explanation of what was going on. We got no information about what was going on. We ultimately were just left holding our dicks in our hands trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. So here we are. We're in the first match of the night. You've got the new quote-unquote champion, and he's going to job out Cobra in 16 seconds with a chokeslam. I just, whatever. I guess there's a couple things in here that were actually decent. First of all, Giant picks up Dave Pinzer in the ring and lifts him up over his head and demands that he say that this is now a title match, which I thought was actually kind of funny. Now, here's the poor thing about poor Cobra. First of all, his intro music is basically Morse code. There's no actual music there at all. It's just Morse code, which is a shame because unfortunately the Cobra's claim to fame is being fake Sting or NWO's thing in New Japan. I mean, kind of like at least he had a decent career over in Japan for a little bit, but here he's just going to get jobbed out over and over again. And Jesus. Poor guy got squashed in 16 seconds. Oof. All right, after that blue locker room promo, a little bit of technical difficulties that made their way onto the actual network there, by the way. It's a very odd promo. After that, there's a World War III promo. After that, there is a Hogan Macho Man Dark Side program at Venice Beach. There's some homeless Jimi Hendrix-looking guitar player with a turban, and some bum is sitting between them. Looks like he hasn't had a bath in about 3 weeks, and he's apparently their manager. They got rid of Jimmy Hart, and they replaced him with a legitimate bum. Whatever. All right, after that, you got Taskmaster with Jimmy Hart defeating the Renegade in 2:47. I gave that one 1 out of 5. I gave it 1 out of 5 because it was... Well, here's the thing. Poor Renegade was brought in by Eric Bischoff and Kevin Sullivan because they couldn't actually get Warrior to come and work for them. So what they did was they took a stripper who had a decent physique on him, and they dressed him up as the Renegade Warrior first, and then they got rid of the Warrior thing, and he was just the Renegade. And he was there for, like, I don't know, like 2 years or so, just mostly dark matches or house shows or whatever. But every now and then, like, they gave him a decent run. They gave him a TV title, which he never defended on television, except maybe, like, pre-records. But Jimmy Hart was apparently heavily involved in the branding around the Renegade, and so because he was one of the booking agents, the word backstage was that Jimmy Hart was, like, really over on the Renegade. He thought he was absolutely as good as Jim Hellwig was, and that they could just absolutely just go ahead and put out this fake Warrior and go like that, which of course didn't work, but it wasn't going to work. It wasn't long for the world. So then they devised this burial match where Kevin Sullivan, one of the guys who brought this guy in, and Jimmy Hart, who came up with his whole gimmick, squashed the poor guy in less than 3 minutes, and then post-match wiped off all of his Hogan-colored face paint. It was one of those, like, you know, one of those things that's like, it's a work that turns into a shoot, and it's kind of embarrassing when you're watching it. You're just, it's kind of like when you know that a chick's or a guy's about to break up with a chick because he's your boy, and you have to be in the vicinity of the breakup and just sort of sit there and not say anything because you still want to fuck her friends. So you got to pretend like you're embarrassed. It was just really an uncomfortable. It was fucking hard to watch, even watching back like 20 something years later. All right, well, 15 years later. Sorry, my math is off just a little bit. Fuck off. All right, after this, we got a red locker room promo, so the heel locker room. Shark and Norton get into a bit of a shoving match, and then they storm off to the ring to have a match. Now, production were probably not in the loop here because production decided to kill the lights after these two bailed on the set, which there was no lights. And Flair comes into the image to do his part of this promo and just covers it up. Like, just did a pretty decent job of covering it up, actually. But, just technical difficulties all around this whole red and blue locker room. First, the phone call, the phone line fucks up. Then the production of the whole thing fucks up. It's not an awesome promo, and it's not an awesome gimmick, but it went over about as awesome as you would expect something this shit to go over. All right.
That's what I do!
Kind of golden showers here from you, Taz, and Bloodfest.
What?
Now, Benoit and Guerrero go at it after this. Guerrero goes over on Benoit in 6:29 in 2.5 minutes. Benoit is still rocking his jobber leggings and exuding excitement about being there, as Benoit often does. He is Mr. fucking excitement, and how dare you for suggesting otherwise. Bischoff says these two are performing at their best so that promoters around the world can see them. And steal them? What the fuck is he even trying to say? They're so good that WCW hasn't even signed them yet? What the hell are you even talking about? Eventually, 2.5 minutes later, Bischoff explains what he was talking about in that the championship committee is putting together the cruiserweight division, and these guys are going to get hired as part of that cruiserweight division. It would be nice to know that 2.5 minutes ago when you originally said that basically they're trying out on live television so that other companies can hire them, but whatever. I'm just nitpicking at this point, aren't I? Camera span to the Japanese buffet table, according to Steve Mongo McMichael. And this is the on-camera debut of the WCW and, the New Japan partnership. The WCW was also working on a similar deal with AAA down in Mexico at the time, which is how they got Eddie. But none of the material that they filmed around the AAA stuff was really airable and usable on camera. They did do some of it on the Sunday night show, or the, main event? Yeah. They did some of it there, but ultimately it got kind of scrapped because the fact of the matter was that a lot of it was in Spanish. And WCW was convinced that despite being a Southern wrestling company, that somehow the Southern wrestling fans don't know fucking Spanish. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyways, after this, we got a Blue Locker Room nonsense, Fall Brawl VHS promo, and then the results of the voting all week culminates in the main event being what was booked. Interesting, since it'd been plugged as being for the whole show 50 million times, but whatever.
You will respect my authority.
I will not. I will absolutely not. The fans chose Flair versus Sting as the story changed from last week, and all those people voted for this, which got put over by the ring announcer. So at least they covered it up reasonably well, as if this wasn't always going to be the main event, because they kept promoting Sting wanting to kill Flair over and over and over again. I know that some people are going to make the excuse that somehow WCW was trying to get this as a result of the phone-in line. Fuck you. 24 people called in, dude. 24 fucking people. I bet you they called in with like troll things too. I mean, I know this was mid-90s, but I bet you that some of them called in looking for that Okerlund-Schiavone match. All right, Bischoff here quips that Flair is fighting fire with fire when he puts his own submission on Sting. Now, I'm going to repeat that again. Flair puts the figure 4 on Sting, and he is fighting fire with fire when he puts it on him. Like, what the actual fuck is wrong with you? Did the fucking hair dye seep through the scalp a little bit? Like, holy fuck. You've got notes there, dude. Use them. When the match is over, Sting won't release the Scorpion Deathlock submission. Bischoff says that he sees Luger, but JL... Now, here's the thing. Bischoff says he sees Luger before Luger's anywhere out of the entrance ramp at all. Jerry Lynn came down, Guerrero came down, Evad came down, Jim Duggan came down, Johnny B. Bad came down. So, in order to cover that up, supposedly, Luger was being restrained by security. Everyone else was free to go. Awesome. Anyways, Luger does eventually break loose from security, comes down to the ring in his awesome, very, very classy, by the way. And I'm not saying that mean. I fucking want a pair of pinstriped Zubaz. Sting and Luger leave together after Luger talks to Sting for a little bit, and Eric does his best acting that he can possibly do. For a guy that wants to be on TV, he really needs to take some fucking acting lessons. Gene is in the ring afterwards with Sullivan, Giant, and Hart. This is after the commercial break, of course. Hart shoots on Hogan's garbage Hollywood career, which is kind of funny. Then he reveals that he has Hogan's power of eternity, and now we get to see the reveal that allows for the championship belt to change hands via DQ. So we get the fucking video package or whatever, and we see, how this all came to pass again with the Yeti doing the fucking humping thing and all that embarrassing shit. Gene calls down a lawyer, Nick Lambrose, who was actually a VP of talent relations. I think he had Jim Ross's job in the WCW, but he was actually a lawyer. He'd actually passed the bar in Georgia. So they kayfabe / shot this a little bit. He comes out and he strips the Giant of the title and announces that the winner at World War III's 60-man Battle Royal will become the new world champion. Now, at this point, Giant actually surrenders the belt. He eventually says, I don't want to give it up. I ain't giving it up. And then after Nick Lambrose says that he's got to give it up, Giant takes it off and hands it over. And then Sullivan cuts the promo saying that he'll give the belt over and blah, 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 blah. Because he got in the middle of the two of them and basically, hey, dumb fuck, hold on to the belt for a couple seconds. We got to finish the fucking promo, retard. So It would have been better, though,